Hey dude, what's up? Evan from Stock Music Musician, and today I've got a review of Universal Audio's new audio interface, the Apollo Solo. This thing is really fantastic, but I do have some caveats in recommending it. Let me tell you how this review is going to be structured. It's going to focus on, first, I'll tell you about the features on the outside and some of those on the inside. Then what we'll do is we'll pop into the DAW and you can hear how incredible this sounds and also how great the plugins are. And we'll also take a look at the software that comes with it. Both it comes with its own DAW and it also, more importantly, comes with a really powerful and flexible routing tool for actually controlling your inputs and your outputs and your monitoring and your plugins and all of that. And then we'll have a little conclusion where I share my thoughts and some of what I think are some of the biggest weaknesses of this. So, without further ado, let's hop on in. Let me let you know that also, if you're interested in purchasing an Apollo Solo, there is an affiliate link down below. If you purchase the audio interface, I will get a commission and it won't cost you anything. So I'd really appreciate it if you want to support the channel. And if you are interested in checking this out, at least check out the price of this and see if it's right for you. So let's start with the interface. It's made out of, I think, brushed aluminum or some nice piece of metal. It feels very sturdy and I would feel very comfortable gigging with it. The knob feels nice. All the buttons are recessed. Nothing pokes out weird. So this is definitely the sort of thing you could put in your gig bag. I wouldn't want to be rough with it, but it feels sturdy. It's also light. And the entire bottom is like a very sticky rubber feeling. So it's not going to be sliding all around on stage or something. You could definitely mount it, sit it on like a diagonal surface, and I think it would stick just fine. Let me know in the comments below what audio interface you're using right now and why you chose it. In terms of inputs, on the front you have a high Z for your guitar or bass and a headphone output. And I really love that both of these are on the front because these are things that sometimes you plug in and then you plug them out and you don't have to have wiring everywhere. Like, I don't mix on headphones that often, or I don't use it for recording that often. And I hate to have the wire, like on my old audio interface, the headphone jack was on the back. It was like a pain in the butt to reach in there, unplug it and plug it. This way I can just go in and out, and the rest of the time I can have my headphones elsewhere. Similarly with the guitar. On the back side, you've got two inputs for mic or line. You can put an XLR or a 1/4 inch in here. And you've got a stereo set of outputs for your monitors, and then a Thunderbolt 3 cable port. There's also a non-Thunderbolt 3 version. I really am liking the Thunderbolt 3. The big thing I want to let you know is that it does not come with a Thunderbolt 3 cable. So if you're going to buy one of these, be sure to add the Thunderbolt 3 cable to your cart. Again, there's that link below. On the front, you've got a nice, clean, and bright audio interface. This thing will light up when it's plugged in, and it is bright enough that you can see it in, maybe you can't see it fully outdoors. I haven't tried gigging it with that outdoors, but in my studio, I can see it very clearly, and even in a bright sunny day, not a problem with that. The monitoring you have for channel 1 and channel 2, and the outputs, also this will light up based on how much gain you have on the monitors or the headphones. You've got all the major functions you would need on the front with individual buttons for monitor selection. This is the gain adjust for either inputs or for the monitors or headphones. You pop it in, it mutes the outputs. You can choose which preamps are on. You can select inputs, low pass or low cut, phantom power, a pad, phase, invert, all the things you would like to see on an audio interface. From a external feature and build quality, this thing is a 10 out of 10. The only real question is, do you need more channels, right? There are, even though I said there's a high Z and then there's 2 XLRs, the most you can record at any one time is 2 channels, which is basically you can get a stereo path. For some people, that's not going to be enough. I used to have an interface with more inputs, but when I was really being honest with myself, I almost never used more than 2. So I decided that, you know what, I'd rather have a really high quality interface with just a few inputs than all these other inputs that I barely ever use. Similarly, on the outputs, if you monitor on multiple speakers, you might be disappointed by this because you can only, by default, have one set of monitors. I personally only monitor off of one pair of speakers, and then I've got a Bluetooth speaker that I use to check things in mono. So, you know, that's a workaround tip. If you want to, you know, run with it, run with it. But it's definitely much more geared towards the home studio, singer-songwriter type. I don't really sing, but I do record rappers from time to time, or, you know, obviously play instruments and things like that. And this is totally works for everything I would need. The only big problem for me is that there's only one headphone out jack, which if you're recording with another person, makes it a problem. I kind of think they should have included 2 to match the 2 inputs, because let's say you're both playing guitar together, or the engineer, you know, I'm hitting the record button and checking everything while my friend is singing or rapping or playing guitar. You can't monitor it both independently. You can easily get a headphone splitter, which is great, but you'll both have to hear the same mix. One last thing I'll add about, well, no, there's a couple more things to add about the features. That the headphone amp in here is very powerful and loud and sounds great. Really, it drives your headphones well, and will give you a good reference mix. On top of that, this is also loaded with very, very high quality preamps, best in the business, and really good analog to digital and digital to analog conversion. I was really honestly shocked to hear how much better music sounded being played back on through this versus my old interface, which is a Steinberg UR28M, probably about 5 years old, 4 years old, which was a nice interface, not top of the line by any means, but it sounds noticeably better, even just like something off of Spotify. And my recordings, I think, also sound cleaner going through this. Unfortunately, I can't think of a way to really demonstrate that to you via a recording, but in my practiced opinion, everything sounds better coming out of this. The other thing is that there are also what Apollo or what UAD calls their unison technology, which allows them to emulate classic hardware, because they have modeled the input stages of their preamps in such a way that they can really account for the peculiarities both of this unit, and then also translate that into the vintage analog technology that they've emulated. And as we'll see when we go into some sound demos, it sounds really good. These are the best sounding plugins I've ever heard. But more than that, there is also a Shark processor inside of this, which can do all of your audio processing. So all of the, and this is an important point for later, all of the universal audio plugins that you run, that you own, that you are running, are coming out of here. They're coming out of your preamp. Your computer is not doing any calculating. So if you have an old computer, this can really help. It offloads some of the processing. But as we'll talk about, if you've got a new computer, or if you want to do a lot of processing, it doesn't work out so great. That's basically the features. I will also add that it comes with a really nice selection of plugins, and also with a free DAW, Luna, and a very handy control piece of software, the best I've ever seen. So let's jump into the computer and we'll listen to some of those plugins. We'll walk around the software,
how great the
and then at the very
plugins
end,
sound.
I'll give you my conclusion. So on this track, what I've done is just recorded a few guitars and basses. This was just a demo I was going to do, but it just sounded so good that I decided to finish it out as a track. It's not completely done, but just, listen. There's a few things actually I want you to listen for. Basically, I recorded all of the guitars and the bass with the amp effects already on and some compression built in. So all those sounds you're hearing are directly from the universal plugins. But the EQs are mostly just the stock Logic EQs because I ran out of processing power. Also, the reverb is coming from, and delay is coming from Logic. There's some good ones. I just didn't have the processing power on my Aero or on my Solo to do it. And then on the master bus, I have a UAD console with a little, with no EQ. Not enough power to use the EQ on the preamp, but I am using a Pultec EQ and then it's running into Ozone. As you may guess, processing power is a problem with the Solo, but we'll talk about more of that later. But the sound quality is incredible, as you'll hear. This isn't fully mixed, but it's roughly mixed. One other thing I want to add is listen to this feedback sound that comes in and out. Like, the amp simulation was so good that you could actually get feedback. And I find that often on software simulations of amps, you can't get that feedback sound. It'll just be noisy, but not feedbacky. So let's listen to the song all the way through. I'll share some thoughts, and then we'll jump into the included software and some of the included plugins. But this is just what it sounds like. All plugins. UAD. Love that bass. Kruger 800 RB bass. And a few of the amps, we'll talk about those later. What a raw sound on that guitar. And it's the Marshall Plexi that comes included. Solo, I think, is going to be on the Friedman, Buxton, Betty guitar. Sustain. So sweet. So, do I think the plugins sound awesome? Yes, I do. I really do. We'll take a minute to listen to a couple of things going on here. We'll pull out a few plugins that are active in the session. But before we do that, I do want to note that they tout this as a low latency way of monitoring. When you play, you really hear it coming out. That's what they say. And it is so true. I sold my guitar amp a couple years ago because I was living in an apartment and I could never play it. And I've just been playing with soft amps since then. Some really good ones from, Native Instruments. I had a, the Avid 11 rack. None of them feel as good as this. The latency is so low when you're playing, and the quality of the simulations are so good. It really does feel like you're playing a guitar amp. I have not had this much fun playing guitar in a couple of years. So I'm really happy to have gotten this. But you are going to need a few guitar amps to really take care of it. We'll get into that more when we talk about the full plugins that are included. Maybe we'll save individual plugin reviews for later, but for another video. But just sounds really good, and it feels fun to play. It feels really like you're playing a real guitar and a real guitar amp. Like, you know, this tail here, this is what a high gain guitar feels like, and not all of the soft amps really quite feel this way. Like, it makes you then play more real because it sounds more real and you're getting the noise back faster. But along with that low latency monitoring and performance, I do need to warn you about a very big problem that has gave me a lot of problems up front. Easily solved, but if your song itself has any UAD plugins on it, like I've got the Neve here and the Pultec on the track. I've got a 1176 compressor here. The latency gets all messed up. And like the monitoring just falls apart. So you have to wait until you're done recording your audio to add your UAD plugins into your project. Or you can just bypass them while you're recording and then turn them back on, which is probably as good a time as any to show you the console. This thing is an incredible piece of engineering that is how you control your monitoring. It's how you control what is plugged into your recording signal. It's really the best piece of recording software, audio input management that I've seen. Let's do a couple more things in this track before we go over to that. But like I said, you can have your plugins here and record them using the UAD record function directly to your DAW. And that's how most of these sounds were recorded, and you won't have any problem. But if you are trying to record the insert effects and you already have plugins like this, UAD plugins like this enabled in your DAW, then you run into problems. So let's just go here and we'll turn off the Pultec and the Neve just to listen to how much fatness they're adding both. Even though the EQ isn't on this Neve, it's just adding a little bit of saturation and fatness through the circuits and then some EQ and fattening there. It just beefs it up a bit. As does this, it just thickens and warms and harmonic. And there's a Pultec emulation that comes with Logic, for example, but it just doesn't compare in terms of quality. I have an actual warm audio EQ-PWA, a hardware emulation of the Pultec, and the UAD plugin sounds pretty damn close to the warm audio one, but it's easier to use because it's on there. So I think the quality of the plugins just really adds something. I'm going to start. So like I said, as I've alluded to, you can only run so many plugins at a time because the processing is taking place in the interface itself. And unfortunately, the processing power just isn't that good. Not powerful enough to do, I think, the things that a lot of people would like to see. So I want to talk about some of the included plugins in this piece of software here. Just kind of show you how it goes. Here are your two channels, your two input channels. There's also some virtual channels if you want to do some routing. And then on the right side, you've got your overall monitoring. You can record any plugins that you have or just monitor through them. There's also the ability to use aux sends. So you can send this channel to aux1 and you could put like a reverb on it so that you would hear it, but you wouldn't record with it. Similarly with the headphones, you have the control room sources, and you can also do some Q outputs, headphone mix or the overall mix. You can mute the output or put it into mono easily. And here's your overall volume control. So on the individual channels, you got the input, the gain, and then there's buttons for all of these on the front of the interface, but also you have the phantom power, filtering, that sort of thing. At the top here, you see this little button that says Unison Plus, and this is where your Unison plugins go in. These are the high quality plugins that basically model analog circuitry, and they also take up a ton of processing power. So I'll just show like the you have this control panel here, which monitors how much DSP is being used on the you have this process thing here, which shows you how much DSP is being used just by default. So all we have on right now is a tuner. Let's remove that. It uses up a surprising amount of resources. Also, big note, it does not come with a tuner built in. The tuner's packaged with some extra guitar amps. There is no tuner in the default package that comes with Universal Audio, which is kind of a problem because you monitor your recordings instead through this piece of software here, the UAD console, not through your DAW, which is the way you normally do. And most DAW tuners kick in on them through the monitoring section. And so you basically are not able to use your DAW tuner without going into your preferences settings because of the way that the UAD console speaks with your DAW. And so your DAW tuner is going to be kind of out of commission unless you go through some steps, turn it on, turn it off. I really think they should have just included a tuner with the console because they charge a lot for it to run on this if you wanted to get it standalone. So just default having the UAD plugged in, it uses 9% of your processing power, not a ton of memory. Now let's put in one of the included Unison plugins, the Marshall stack. So that already gets us to 41% of the DSP. It's a nice but basic amp simulator. It sounds really good. It does this one sound great, an SM57 plugged into a Marshall classic, Plexi. But it doesn't have any of the fancy options that some of the other plugins would have that you have to buy. A nice, useful amount of presets. Cool. So that's input one. And let's add if you really want to say you were doing this, well, right? You would really want to simulate it going into a channel strip. And this is the UAD channel strip that comes with it. And then let's say you also are recording a singer. Like right now you're at almost all of your DSP with 3 plugins. And then let's say the singer wants a reverb. So we'll go to RealVerb Pro. And maybe they also want some compression on their voice that you add. LA2A. You're at 100% at this point. And let's just blow it over, but also add an 1176. Boom. So, you can run a fair amount of stuff on this, but not nearly as much as you want. These plugins only run through the console. You cannot have them run through your DAW or on your computer. So it's not as much of a problem when you're recording because honestly, you're probably not going to record with more than X amount of plugins, You're probably not going to break it on the recording side of things. But if you want to start mixing with these plugins, pretty soon you run out of processing. And also I'm going to say that these are 2 lightweight plugins. Like I said, there are tons of amazing plugins you can get from UAD. But let's instead try one of their fancier plugins, the Fender 55 Tweed Deluxe. This one plugin uses up 76% of the processing power, and then you literally cannot run, like if you wanted to record one of their fancy basses and one of their fancy guitars simultaneously, you're both in the room, you can't run the bass plugin. It shuts off because it's already overloaded. Or you can't run like the 58 into a preamp channel. I can turn the Neve on, but I can't turn the EQ on it because that'll break it. So the processing side of things is definitely disappointing. But there are a wealth of amazing UAD plugins out there to explore. You can get a good sound going in. With this, you've got so many different things to simulate the different mics. And yes, these really do sound better than other plugins, as you heard from that recording. So this is the basics of it. I will also say, actually there's the monitoring down here as well. I will also say that it comes with a pretty nice selection of plugins. Like I said, no guitar tuner, which is a big deal, I think. But it comes with, well, let's just go to all of them. I bought a few, but it comes with a basic but wonderful bass amp. A bonus, it comes with a free chorus after you register it. It does not come with a tuner. It comes with a channel strip with some basic compression. It comes with the Marshall Plexi Classic, which is a really nice Marshall guitar amp. It does not come with the Neve. I bought that. It comes with a channel strip, which lets you do some things. It comes with a really great delay and a really nice reverb engine. And it comes with the Pultec EQP Legacy, which is a nice one, a nice EQ. It doesn't come with the Pro Legacy. It comes with a nice distortion pedal, the Raw, a nice reverb, and the Legacy version of 3 compressors, which are all really good compressors. The Legacy version, though, means they're the light version, so they have fancier versions that are not included with this. And then it comes with the UA 610B channel strip, which is a very nice channel strip, classic. So it comes with a really, I think, nice assortment of plugins for being a preamp. For being an audio interface. And there are a ton more to buy. They are expensive, but they often go on sales. So wait till you find a sale to buy additional plugins. It also does include a free DAW, Luna, which on first blush seems to be a really nice DAW. I've messed around with it for a few minutes. I'm not in the mood or in the market for a new DAW, so I'm not going to bother to learn it. But if you want something more than GarageBand, it might be worth it checking out whether Luna works for you. Luna is Mac only, but it is free. It seems a little bit like a great DAW for mixing, but you probably would need to invest a pretty sizable sum in UAD plugins to really take the most of it, because it has very deep integrations with hardware, modeling. You can have everything running through tape and through console channels and summing and all sorts of great stuff. But you probably also need a more powerful UAD interface than the Apollo Solo to really take advantage of it, in addition to buying, the tape simulation plugins and the console simulation plugins and things like that. So all in all, sounds great, but underpowered. Let's go back to the conclusion of this review, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Okay, so I think you've heard how great this sounds and seen how easy it is to use and how feature-packed. And I think that this is a really great choice for a lot of musicians, especially for your home studios, because once you get this, I'm sure you can use this forever. This thing is really great technology, and to the extent that you outgrow it because you need more processing power or because you need more inputs, you can always get breakout boxes that Universal Audio sells, and they can be daisy-chained using Thunderbolt 3 to basically create expandable workstation on the fly. So I would pretty much recommend this without reservation to most singer-songwriters. There's that affiliate link if you want to grab it, check out the price, see if it's right for you. But the big stopping point for this, for me, is that plugins sound great, and clearly they require a lot of processing power. But as we saw, you cannot run that many of their plugins simultaneously using just this device. I thought I had a super powerful computer and that this would sort of only function as like a dongle to verify the plugins. And I was disappointed to see that I can often not run even 2 Unison plugins simultaneously, meaning that you couldn't even have one on 2 input channels you were recording simultaneously, or you couldn't do a amp simulation into a preamp channel into a board, situation, which I think is really disappointing. I think this is underpowered in terms of the processing on board. So I wonder, am I gonna just get a breakout and run more processing off of it? That's a possibility. I really enjoy the quality of these plugins. I have some analog hardware, but I might just sell it and go fully digital because this is just so much more convenient. But I do have to think, what do you want to be tied to one company? Yeah, they've been around for a long time. I think they make really good plugins and they make a really solid interface, and I would recommend this. One last thing I will say though is that if you are on a PC, they say it works on a PC. A lot of people on the webs are saying that getting this to work on a PC is a nightmare and it is not responsive or stable, not pleasant. Maybe it doesn't even work. So that's something to consider. I think if you're a Mac user, this is pretty easy to say, yeah, get it, it's awesome. If you're a PC user, I think you really need to do your homework and research more about whether or not it's going to work for you and see what people's experiences are with that. One last thing I'll say is that there is not a power control on this. So that means it has to use smart technology to turn on and turn off, to sleep and to awake. And I do not find it to always be so smart. It wakes up at weird times, or it doesn't go to sleep at weird times, but it doesn't go to sleep when it should. So if I wake up in the middle of the night, or I might still be on. And it's like, what? This thing uses quite a bit of power. It can get hot. Why are you on right now? So I wish it was either smarter or that there was an on-off switch. Also though, this is brand new, so maybe the firmware will update and that'll improve over time. It also makes a loud sound when turning on and off. It kind of ratchets up, which is unpleasant. So if you were to have this in your room, for example, your bedroom, if that was your studio, I think it would probably wake you up or give you a very bad night's sleep if this is turning on and off in the middle of the night. So you might just have to manually disconnect it, which sucks. That said, still I would say this unit, in terms of value, in terms of quality, in terms of ease of use, for the everyday producer, singer-songwriter with a home studio and a Mac, 9 out of 10, maybe even 10 out of 10. This is a great, great piece of hardware coupled with a lot of brilliant software. You can't go wrong. You will be happy if you get this. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below.